It's been a long time waiting, right? We've had a couple of, what is it? We had a hiatus for a week, right? Sentenced to be a Hero is coming back, but before we do that, episode 1 cut content from Mr. Aninews. Let's check it out. Let's go.
Episode 1 honestly felt like a movie.
Yeah.
With quality animation all the way through and a world that had me captivated right from the get-go, I can already tell you we're gonna be in for a treat this season.
Isn't that great how Aninews immediately acknowledges how the world building and the stories is already like shown and foreshadowed and hinted at the get-go? So many people saw it and they're like, this is Gunga Boonga Shonen Slop. Oh, generic mystery at the end. What do you mean? Like, you're telling me your media literacy is so fucking weak you can't pick up on all these different things of Xylo's identity being obscured, of why he's a hero, the association with the knights, of why he's exiled, the goddess, the casket, why Dota even stole the casket when it was going to a specific location, right? Maybe Dota even like did it intentionally, right? What a goddess even is, the nature of blights and so on, so much stuff going on. But people just see the hype Sakuga and they reduce it down to, oh, just visuals.
Still, even with episode 1's impressive 1-hour runtime, lots of lore from the covered chapters were left out.
All right, let's get it.
Ranging from how long humanity has been fighting the Blight, all the way to what goddesses are and how their abilities work. The anime also changes up the events of the story a bit, rearranging when and how Xylo makes his pact with Teorita. This in turn leaves out an entire
Whoa, Teo, chill.
Not in a bad way like how you might think. In fact,
Yo, that was the manga? Of when Teo popped up with the swords. Man, this is what direction is. You saw the scene in the anime for this, right? Obviously the manga looks great, but the way that the anime directed this scene with this sword animation all coming down, holy shit, that was peak.
How you might think. In fact, the changes in the anime might even be better. So, whether you want to learn more about the story or just see what's different between the anime and the novel, this video will cover all of that.
But first, before we get started...
But first, if you've ever wanted to see...
Ain't nobody doesn't like me! I know him! I know his content. I've been farming for so many years. I just knew when an ad break's showing up.
Iconic anime powerhouses face off against
Yeah.
Now you can with AFK Arena's crossover with One Punch Man.
AFK Arena's still fucking going at it? Holy shit. One Punch Man collab is crazy, considering Season 3 disaster, man. Anyways, please use Aninews' code. Here's a link, all right? Go sponsor him, all right? Go help him out, all right? Here's the code. Come on. Right over here. Bang. Bang, 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 bang. Go juice up Aninews if you play AFK Arena. Link in the chat, all right?
In the description to get started today. Whether it be Saitama, Albedo, Rem, or any of the
Overlord ReZero?
You can weaponize all the greatest characters in anime to create your own ultimate power.
This is actually kind of crazy. How many anime crossover collabs have they done? What the hell?
Dominate every battle in AFK Arena. But now, let's get back to the video.
Alright.
Episode 1. Support Retreat from Cavenge Forest. Covering the prologue and report of said incident from Volume 1 of the light novel. The prologue is...
I feel like Ellen Historian's reputation really took a hit ever since he waged the war because of this one cover, bro. He didn't need to die on that hill. I don't know what the fuck he was doing with the fucking AI argument too. Oh my god. It's past now, but this one cover. Shit, bro. We had a whole ass fucking PvP server going on Twitter because of this shit.
The prologue is brief yet impactful, starting with what it means to be sentenced as a hero.
Okay.
We already know it's considered a fate worse than death, but what that initial excerpt doesn't share is that there is a way out. As unlikely as it is to achieve, by killing every last demon lord and stopping the spread of the blight, it was possible for a hero to gain amnesty.
Just kill all the demon lords. How many have there been so far? Like 40 something now? It sounds like a scam. I feel like this real set might exist, but don't trust any of it.
To even think such a feat was possible in the first place though, well, that was a fantasy only a fool would cling to. Instead, the fate of a hero could very well last for 100 years and onward. Nothing would release them from their punishment except total victory.
That explosion looks so good.
This brings us now to our first hero, Dota.
Dota!
A criminal guilty of treason and a world-class prodigy at petty theft.
Kleptomaniac specialist. My schizo headcanon is that Dota is Aizen and he is just... he is Noritoshi Kamo. He is not Geto. He is somebody that is planning and gave Xylo that coffin. Yup. It wasn't a random steal. Nah, it was intentional. I would love it if that was true.
Before being sentenced to be a hero, he'd apparently been involved in over 1,000 cases of burglary.
Goddamn!
One of which even resulted in him stealing one of the royal family's dragons.
What? How do you steal a dragon? Was it a baby dragon?
Naturally, you'd think such a feat was impressive, but when you find out the dragon had eaten one of Dota's arms in the process, you start to see just how crazy Dota really is. Only a madman or someone obsessed with thievery would try to steal a dragon.
Wait, the dragon fucks his arm up and he tries to steal? I can't even comprehend this. How does he... we haven't seen his real powers though yet, right? He just kind of jumps in, jumps out.
Dota just happened to be both. He was currently alongside Xylo, working in the battlefield that was the Covenge Forest.
Okay.
Said forest was in the northern part of the Federated Kingdom.
You know what? True. Very good question. Is that even his body? They talked about souls, right? Vessels, right? It doesn't need to be Dota's body. He specifically mentioned that, right? So Dota could be like, I don't know, built like fucking Hercules or some shit, and you never know in the past.
The last nation left to all of humanity. That said, even now as heroes and holy knights were fighting to defend it, humanity was on the verge of losing even this place. That's why Dota was so worried, since he was well aware they were about to fight a demon lord and its army of 5,000. They didn't even have the option not to, since as criminals serving time as heroes, the sacred seals imprinted onto their necks made sure of it. You see, should they ever try to escape or fail the mission given to them, then those seals would torture them to death and lead to their subsequent resurrection. A quick extra bit of info about resurrection is that in addition to losing one's memories and sense of self, how well the resurrection goes depends on the condition of the body too. This is because revival was apparently the process of dragging their spirits out of hell and driving them back into their flesh, so the better the corpse's condition, the more precise the resurrection.
Okay.
That said, the people responsible for these resurrections...
What happens if the resurrection isn't precise? I guess you just kind of get a botch start in this new round. It's just like, good luck, you're not operating at full capacity.
The more precise the resurrection. That said, the people responsible for these resurrections weren't afraid to use someone else's body. Even if gluing random bits of pieces together increased the chance of failure, so long as all the necessary parts were present, revival would still be attempted anyway.
This is a very interesting mechanic. Swapping bodies, souls being planted into others, identities being obscured, past history also being obscured because of this mystery. I love it.
It's why some heroes are eventually reduced to mindless walking corpses. So, regardless of whether your heart stops...
You know what'd be crazy? This dude actually isn't crazy. So my headcanon with this, I was thinking about just different combinations of the facts that they're giving. What if someone is pretending to be crazy, but they actually have their sanity? Now, I don't know why they would pretend to be crazy. Maybe just to hide some secrets, to catch someone off guard. Imagine this dude is completely sane, but acts insane, and then it creates an opening for him to follow his agenda. But most likely, that's not what's going on.
So, regardless of whether your heart stopped or your head was blown off, perpetual resurrection ensured heroes would complete their mission no matter what. Now, we know their mission this time was to support the troops in their retreat, so that was given to Penal Hero Unit 9004 alone.
Penal.
Normally,
sounds like penis and anal together. Haha.
There would be a lot more heroes within the unit, but with everyone else out for resurrection or busy with another mission, that left only Xylo and Dota. They did have their commander Venetim too, but he was for the most part useless.
Okay.
Luckily, this time he had come in handy, since if not for his quick-thinking negotiation skills, the conditions for success would have been defeating the Demon Lord outright.
Yeah, Venetim had a couple of lines last episode, not much. Seems to be on our side, right? But also, I don't know what his alliance really is at the end of the day.
Instead, Venetim had talked it down to simply getting the majority of the Holy Knights to safety. This was only possible due to his past as a con artist and political criminal, so...
Perfect! Oh, this is me. Political convict, deception, charisma, yaps his way, impulsive liar. Hey, wait a minute, this is me!
Despite being a coward with no leadership and fighting ability, he was incredibly skilled at deception.
If I were a character in Isekai, I would not, like our fantasy anime, I would not be like a Giga Chad like swordsman. I would not be a mage, I would not be a tank. I would be a little fucking weasel. I would be the one that talks his way out of anything or has like a lot of luck stat. That's the guy. I talked about this in Konosuba too. I think that the most compelling type of character in RPG is like, I would go one trick pony on like charisma or luck, something like that, and basically get away by just like being king from One Punch Man, or like Usopp, or like Buggy. You know what I mean? I like those kind of archetypes of characters.
The same unfortunately couldn't be said for Dota, since when it came time to explain himself about the coffin, there was no reason other than pure impulse. Dota was a true kleptomaniac through and through.
Okay, there's no reason why he just happened to bring the specific one with the goddess in it that was being transported to a different area, which is also a mysterious conspiracy on its own, to Xylo. Okay.
Anything that could be stolen would be stolen, and the more useless it was, the more he wanted it. Like, for the coffin in particular,
Yeah?
he didn't know he was taking a dead body until he was already stealing it.
Aww. Oh, my headcanon schizo theories are all now just not possible.
Now, perhaps it was morbid curiosity that had Xylo open it, but whatever it was, what he found inside was one of mankind's last hopes.
Ooh.
A life form created for war using the wisdom of the ancients. Some may think saying last hope was an exaggeration, but for Xylo, he was well aware goddesses were the strongest weapons humanity had against the demon lords. That said, with only 12 goddesses existing in total and the Holy
12.
Knights being the organization meant to protect and use them, the fact Dota
12 plus 1 is 13. 13 is an unlucky number. It's like a forbidden cursed number. Why do I mention this? I don't know. I just like to play with the existing parameters and tweak it around just to see if it's thematically makes sense. Maybe there's a forbidden goddess, a 13th goddess they're hiding.
had managed to steal one just confirmed how skilled of a thief he was. If not for his circumstances, he very well could have gone down as the greatest thief in history.
Damn.
Dota's description of goddesses wasn't inaccurate either, as not all of them had a female body.
Go back.
He very well could have gone down as the greatest thief in history. Dota's description of goddesses wasn't inaccurate either, as not all of them had a female body.
Are they gonna be Shotas now then? Because I don't know, we've only seen two goddesses, Xylo's old one and this one, right? So like, wonder if they're all just lollies and Shotas.
They were just called goddesses for the sake of convenience. With all being these super weapons created in the ancient times though, some took on bizarre forms that were incomprehensible to humans.
What?
Either way, the goddesses and their origins were
I mean, what if demon lords are simply goddesses that's become corrupt beyond saving? I mean, we've already explored that concept at the end of the last episode, right? These beings have existed in the past to slay I don't know. The more I think, it just being this line here from Aninews. Listen to this part again.
these super weapons created in the ancient times though, some took on bizarre forms that were incomprehensible to humans.
I wonder what kind of forms they would be, right? But I just feel like there's gotta be some sort of connection between the blighted demon goddesses as well as the demon lords and why the temple wants to hide the truth from the masses.
Either way, the goddesses and their origins were far beyond Xylo's understanding. Everything I just said was all he could confidently recount about them. It was then that Xylo would get himself ready to fight the Blight.
You know, if my assumption here, which is probably not true, right? We're just fucking, we are just theory crafting. If the notion that the demon lords are blighted goddesses beyond saving, it's kind of even more sad and tragic how Xylo, again traumatized with the death of his goddess in the past, has now overcome that to make a new pact with the new goddess, but then they immediately go on and kill the goddess that has not turned to a demon lord. Do you know what I'm saying? Again, it doesn't need to be true. I'm just like thinking of like, that would be kind of beautifully written.
Confidently recount about them. It was then that Xylo would get himself ready to fight the Blight, taking with him the only possession not stripped from him when he was sentenced. This would be his sacred seals meant for battle, markings that went by the name of Super Multi-Purpose Belcore Mobility Thunderstroke Seal Compound.
What? Wow, that is a mouthful. Okay.
Now, unlike how Xylo left the goddess in the coffin where it was, in the novel he would order Dota to carry it.
Sure.
This has her entrance come from her coffin rather than the confident strut from the forest, but both depict the goddess the way that she was meant to be. A confident go-getter eager to receive praise. Every goddess
My
did
knights.
have their own unique
Wagakishi.
personality, but what they all had in common was their proud demeanor and a strong desire for approval. They were prideful warriors who sought battle and the commendations to come after it.
Right, Tio's themes was all about honor, right? Honor, you know, the battle, let's go, my knight, let's do this. And Xylo's entire thing, he's thrown that away from the past, right?
This one in particular was different though, as just as Xylo noted, she was the never activated 13th goddess.
There it is, number 13.
Now, before we get to Xylo saving that detachment of holy...
That means there are more unactivated goddesses secretly. You never know. Don't trust any of the fucking rules. They're all lying to you, especially with the temple. 12 goddesses existed, one died. Okay, sure. You had a 13th one, though, that was unactivated? How many unactivated ones do you have in your fucking chamber of lollies? Nah.
Knights that were getting massacred. There was first a bit of history given about how humanity even ended up here. I imagine some of this might be mentioned in a future episode, but just in case it doesn't, you should know the fight between mankind and the Demon Blight has been occurring sporadically. All throughout history, the Demon Blight would come in waves. Right now, humanity was fighting in what's officially called the Fourth War of Subjugation, an outbreak of Demon Blight that first started 20 years ago. The very first war dates all the way back to ancient times, but for now, this one started in a newly developing mountain region far to the west.
I like this. It's kind of like Lord of the Mysteries, where they have these epics, right? The old ancient mythos times, you know, the age of gods and, you know, mythical creatures, and the eras passes, but it's vague, right? You don't know the entire logic, and now you're just kind of in present time, but there's so much enriched history. So we're in the fourth one right now. It's been spanning 20 years, but the third, second, you know, first, I'm sure that's going to be juicy lore.
Times, but for now, this one started in a newly developing mountain region far to the west. As the story goes, a giant snake had been spotted warping the trees and transforming the wildlife, even turning those that were bitten by it into monsters. All these reports were dismissed by those who heard it though, since with the Third War of Subjugation having ended 400 years ago, many didn't believe something like this was possible. To them, the Demon Blight was a fairy tale only told by storytellers. This resulted in humanity being late to react, giving the Holy Knights no time to take
Go back.
subjugation. All these reports were dismissed by those who heard it though, since...
Intentional. Let's play this back again. Hold on. This part, I feel like adds on to the schizo stuff.
Been spotted warping the trees and transforming the wildlife, even turning those that were bitten by it into monsters.
But they didn't believe it. The people in power didn't believe it.
Reports were dismissed by those who heard it though, since with the Third War of Subjugation having ended 400 years ago,
they didn't believe
many
it.
didn't believe something like this was possible.
So 400 years ago, it stopped. There was a big conclusion. Who knows what happened? And it's been an era of peace. And then suddenly it started again, and no one believed it. Did the people in power just refuse to acknowledge it? Did they intentionally create it? Like, what would be the incentive of them creating these simulated wars, right? If they truly are just like fabricating these demon lords, I don't know.
To them, the Demon Blight was a fairy tale only told by storytellers. This resulted in humanity being late to react, giving the Holy Knights no time to take action.
Yeah, it all goes to the fucking temple, man. Like, whoever is the Gorosei equivalent in the fucking temple here, right? Whoever is in power. I feel this is very intentional. So why? What would incentivize them to do this? Because war profits money, you know, it generates money. It makes people more religious to the temple. It gives them more power to control. They are creating problems and selling the solution. They are sentencing people to be heroes. I don't know. Let's think more about it.
In the end, they were forced to destroy the entire mountain with a scorched terrain seal. Still, such an act was too little too late, and the Demon Blight had already spread far beyond the mountains. So that was how humanity lost half their habitat, and it's how they now find themselves here. This brings us back to Xylo, who after seeing a detachment of 200 Holy Knights get massacred down to 20, was on his way to help as fast as he could. Doing so meant navigating between the predatory fairies, mutated wildlife that looked like manifestations of each creature's nightmare. It's here that Xylo would be joined by Dota, both using their skills to traverse the forest effectively. Xylo would use the sacred seal on his palm to imbue power into his blade, while Dota would utilize his sixth sense to determine where most of the monsters were.
Bro got the 6 eyes!
See, despite Dota's fear making him a coward, it also made him incredibly sensitive to the presence of other living creatures. This made him incredibly useful as he could easily tell where exactly the distance between himself and any other target was.
Nice vision.
It was a skill that went beyond just decent eyesight.
6 eyes.
Now, Xylo's demeanor towards the goddess was a lot less blunt, as in the novel he was actively trying to turn Teorita down nicely. He didn't just straight up tell her he didn't want her, he instead tried to use her own pride against her.
Interesting. So the anime had a different direction where they made Xylo be more negative and hateful, right? It definitely wasn't positive, right? In order to portray this, like, why is he being this way? Why? Because of the past with his goddess, right? So I think that actually plays more into the tragic hero. Yeah, they made him more edgy, and I like it. I like that he was more rude and just kind of, being mean and callous, because at the end of the day, he's trying to protect himself from the past trauma.
Saying how powers like hers shouldn't be used for such a small task. It was before he could say.
It also kind of adds in more to, like, hinting to the audience of, like, why is he being so rude? Why is this so triggering to him, rather than him being nice about it?
Anything else, that Xylo would engage the first fairy just like how we saw in the anime. For a bit more context on what he did, the blast on impact wasn't from the knife, but rather the sacred seal on his palm.
He throws and
he
go
had
boom.
Plenty more sacred seals that he used to be able to utilize, but after becoming a hero, only 2 remained usable.
Okay.
There was the Seal of Heat and Light, formerly known as Zate Finde, and the Seal of Flight called Sakura. Zate Finde simply meant Big Candy, and for Holy Knights, it was a cutting-edge tool used to battle the Demon Blight.
Big Candy? Big Candy? Okay, sure, interesting name.
It allowed those that possessed it to transmit the seal's power into an object and transform them into a tool of destruction. The level of destruction was dependent on the amount of power transmitted into the tool, the full extent of which we've yet to see so far.
So it's independent from the weapon that you're throwing. Listen to him again.
Formed them into a tool of destruction. The level of destruction was dependent on the amount of power transmitted into the tool.
Power transmitted into the tool, a separate energy source, right? The amount of power you're drawing from the seal put into the tool itself doesn't matter. Bro could throw a fucking rock. He could throw a tree branch, and it would do the same amount of damage as long as the proportionate energy poured into the tool is the same.
The full extent of which we've yet to see so far. You see, while Xylo was certainly capable of turning an entire...
Maybe some tools allow you to put more energy into it, like the vessel capacity for this sword is different from the small knives.
...to see so far. You see, while Xylo was certainly capable of turning an entire house to ash, a lot of his blasts were lowered to the size of a carriage, likely to mitigate the amount of friendly fire that might occur.
Nice guy.
When it came to Dota's weapon, this was a staff that had a sacred seal carved into it. Created by the Verkul Development Corporation, the seal they imbued allowed the wielder to unleash bolts of lightning difficult to dodge and even harder to defend against.
Yeah, these are the more upgraded modern ones, right? I think the one that Dota specifically mentioned was, hey, this is like an outdated model.
So it was with this and Xylo that the 2 were able to wipe out the fairies, saving only 10 Holy Knights by the end of it.
They didn't deserve it!
As we saw after, that their help was only met with disgust. This made Xylo ready to leave them behind and use them as a decoy, but that's when Teorita would step in to suggest otherwise.
Okay.
She wanted to use her powers to fend off the next wave, but knowing that doing so meant they couldn't turn back, Xylo would instead do all he could to salvage this barely fixable situation.
Good
For
guy.
some reason, he felt he was still able to return Teorita back to the Holy Knights in secret. That was until Venetim informed them the Holy Knights were moving forward instead of retreating, fully jeopardizing the mission the heroes were tasked with. Not only that, something about this whole situation just didn't seem right.
Feels off.
The Holy Knights Xylo knew were military specialists through and through, and it was from them that he knew just how routine it was to sacrifice heroes while they retreated. The fact they weren't doing that now, though, indicated a miscommunication or clear disobedience. Turns out it was the latter, as their captain had no intent of ever retreating.
Kivia sucks. And maybe the development of this character will be beautiful, right? You can only go up from here, or maybe she crashes out more. What was her entire thing? Honor, pride, duty as a knight. They're like zealots, they're like cult members. To the point where logical, like, strategic opinion from a fellow ex-Holy Knight, right? Because it's come from Xylo, she will never accept it. So it's again, emotions getting in the way of objective duty, where Xylo had the right calls. His leadership was so good. He immediately analyzed what's going on and gave good orders. Kivia's like, nah, fuck you, we crashing out here.
The thing is, with
dude, if she gets sentenced, yes. I hope that she gets sentenced to be a hero, and that itself will be a great journey of how she will change in the shoes of a hero.
their trump card with Xylo and not on the front lines, their chances of victory were pretty much zero. Such was an outcome Xylo was more than aware of, leading him to make a pact with Teorita right here out of nowhere. That's right, it's here in the novel that events start to happen a little bit different. Rather than have that whole battle and make the pact when the situation seemed dire, Xylo instead commits to it before. He was much more open to the pact than he...
Okay, I love the way the anime did it. The way that the anime directed this scene, actually, like, I got chills. I was like, I kind of got goosebumps, and I was like tearing up a bit. The soundtrack, the way, the panic of war and screams going on, and his monologue, and the reasons for why he doesn't want to do it, and to make this pact at this last moment was like, wow, like I felt something.
Seemed dire, Xylo instead commits to it before. He was much
like, this one is less dramatic, right? This is like, all right, we just do it before. The anime, way more dramatic. Oh my god, the direction was so good.
more open to the pact than he was in the anime, as he knew it was the only way to save both the Holy Knights and himself. With the goddess's powers only usable after a pact was made, Xylo knew that despite essentially deceiving the goddess, it was the only option him or anyone else had here. He knew he had to set aside the fact the goddess was entering a pact with someone she didn't even know. So, after
She doesn't seem to mind though. Alright, she's like, whatever, let's fucking go, my knight. It's as if like she hatched out of an egg, like an animal, and then instinctively just saw Xylo as the mama and just like latched on. Hated Dota though.
exchanging an oath and offering part of himself as evidence of their agreement, the pact would be made and remain until one of them died. What exactly did this pact do? Well, it created a bond that connected all the way to the depths of Xylo's heart. It was a feeling that made him think he'd regained a part of himself he'd lost and forgotten. Now, it was at this point that a bit more lore would be given on the goddesses themselves, starting with how they first appeared during the Great Civilized Era at the time of the First War of Subjugation.
Okay, lore?
It was for thousands of years since then that they would always reawaken when the demon blight arose.
They go to sleep? Goddesses are just put to bed until the blight comes back?
It was for thousands of years since.
But the other thing is, why does the blight come back? I thought we handled it. We nuked that shit. It should be gone, yet it keeps coming back. What's the root cause? Temple might know.
Then that they would always reawaken when the demon blight arose, only returning.
Maybe it's as simple as the temple wanted to experiment and basically reach the like peak of scientific research, like a pursuit of power. It's very generic and simple ideology, but like the idea here is the temple keeps ushering on a new era of demon lords and blight, and so that they will continue to create an experiment with these goddesses to basically create more and more power. Something like that?
To their coffins once their duty was fulfilled. While this lengthy slumber would cause them to lose their memories, the fact remained that they would always return for one single purpose: to defend the world and all of its
I don't like the existence of a demon realm, or that they are like their own independent faction, because I want this conspiracy of the temple to be true. It's more compelling to me if this is all like created, like these problems are created from our end and they're trying to obscure the masses from that information. That I just like more stories like that.
inhabitants. Now, each goddess had the unique ability to summon, which according to the temple made them a kind of gateway. The nature of each goddess's summons was different, so one would be capable of manifesting natural phenomena like lightning or storms, while another could bring forth humans.
Okay.
There was supposedly one that could even summon visions of the future.
Wait, go,
make them a kind of gateway. The nature of each goddess's summons was different, so one would be capable of manifesting natural phenomena like lightning or storms, while another could bring forth humans.
You summoning humans? Wait, what?
There was supposedly one that could even summon visions of the future.
What? Like a prophet? Like utility goddess? And what would the visions of the future tell us? That the temples are fucking setting us up?
There were no instructions on how to activate these abilities, but once a pact was made, the holy knight with which it was made with would instinctively know exactly what their goddess was capable of.
Okay, pre-written manual instructions. I think that the pairing of these two is such a good synchro. Xylo seal specifically imbuing the power of the seal onto a tool for destruction. Teo summons unlimited blade works. You know what I mean? Like unlimited tools. It seemed like he had unlimited kunoichi knives, but again, if the vessel of the tool creates more room for the energy of the power from the steel to be put into, I just think like this teamwork here, it's the perfect pairing.
So as soon as Xylo made his pact with Teorita, he immediately understood the countless blades she could summon. Whether they be famous, cursed, treasured, or holy, any and all swords could be summoned based on Xylo's desire.
This is more akin to Gates of Babylon maybe, rather than I am the bone of my sword.
It was for this situation in particular that Xylo wanted defense, sharing a mental picture of what he was thinking. This was a property
It's weird to see him smiling like that. What the fuck? Did he ever actually smile in the anime?
thinking. This was a property unique to those who made a pact, since the connection they shared went beyond just intent and volition. The knowledge they now shared allowed them to instantly know exactly what the other wanted and what their next moves
They're
in the battle could
connected.
be. It was a synchronized partnership that excelled with those well versed in war and military strategy.
Okay.
This is what made Goddesses humanity's trump card, and it's the reason Xylo knew that he could win with her. Naturally, the knights who saw this were distraught, as a hero making a pact with a goddess was unthinkable. Xylo had no choice though, as the knights around him were far too weak to fight with the goddess.
Could there be any potential for someone that wants Xylo to be connected with the goddess like that? Like basically think from the temple's end, but rather than bad faith actors, think about good faith actors, right? Like somebody wanted knew about Xylo and the pairing with Teo and the synchro and Dota just spontaneously. I don't know. Maybe this is just a coincidence.
Xylo had no choice though, as the knights around him were far too weak to fight with the goddess. At the very least, if he ended up dying, he'd just be revived. The same couldn't be said for any of the other knights.
Womp womp.
Now, this brings us to an entire fight we didn't get to see in the anime, since before Xylo could make it over to Kivia and her army, he first needed to defeat the second wave of fairies coming for this weakened detachment.
Okay. This scene in the manga that I compared ignorantly just a couple minutes ago, right? About how the direction was better in the anime. This is a totally different fight.
This is why Xylo wanted defense, as with Teorita's powers,
I
he
see.
knew she could easily make one. It was when she did that the swords that dropped would also kill half the fairies in the process, instantly making the rest of Xylo's job easier. All he had to do was throw some swords and detonate them beyond the fence.
Okay.
Immediately, the fairies saw that they were outmatched, so in a surprising turn of events, they would actually flee. Just like that, Xylo had ended the second wave and saved everyone. I would say.
And did he get a bunch of thank yous? Nah, they probably was like, ew, filthy hero, how dare you, scum!
Dota helped too, but during the entire fight, he didn't hit anyone. His excuse was that he didn't like hurting people.
Why Dota caked up like that? Now he's just a coward.
But it was a well-known fact that he's killed people on burglaries before. So this was just Dota saying anything he could.
Bro robbed the dragon, just remember that, okay? So like, I just don't even understand how that's possible, but you kind of cracked.
As for Teorita, more than anything, she wanted praise for a job well done.
Aww.
This was what goddesses valued more than anything else, and humans did well to take advantage of that.
Oh, wait a minute. So, I thought this is just lolly fan service, you know? Cute character acting, head pat me. We know that trope. But in the form of this story, and how humans can take advantage of the goddesses wanting to please, okay, I like this actually. Where are they cooking with this?
Such intent didn't really matter to the goddess though, as without that praise, they couldn't survive. This brings us back in sync with the anime now, right when Venetim calls to tell them to move to the next battlefield. Aside from all the panic of the mission being at risk of failure, a majority of his words couldn't be trusted. Reason being that Venetim spoke lies as naturally as he breathed.
He is someone that should be taken with a grain of salt. Some of the work, I think he gives great advice when our outcomes and goals align, but he will always back himself up, and his advice, you gotta just read between the lines.
He was a clever con man that used his skills to get on people's favorable side. He had even once convinced the royal family to sell their castle to the circus, but it was
Okay, that's... How stupid and inbred of the royal family to believe that. Wait, you sold the castle? What's the pitch? What did he say? Yo, king! I'm telling you, man. Sell your castle to the circus. Trust me. Trust. And then they're gonna be just doing crazy circus shows in the castle. You're gonna make way more money. You can get a bigger castle after that. It's an investment. It's an investment.
He had even once convinced the royal family to sell their castle to the circus, but it was in the middle of doing so that he was finally caught.
Okay.
So even if the entire...
Okay. I'm glad that the king didn't go. Okay, that's crazy. Why would he? Because he's trying to make $1. You know, he's trying to make $1. He probably kind of playing both sides. That's crazy.
Your unit was in a dire emergency. If Venetim said he was gonna help, it was 9 times out of 10 an act.
Okay.
Xylo knew he would just spew lies so as to not get in trouble with the correctional officer overseeing him. Fortunately, he was able to provide the main army's location, but not at the ready like a good commander would. So this was the experience that came when dealing with Venetim. It was after that Xylo would send the Holy Knights he saved back to their camp, just like how we saw in the anime, then fully commit to taking out the Demon Lord. The only difference between any of this was the fact that he already had the power of the goddess with him. Committing to do so without it would be suicide.
Oh, that
Xylo
explosion.
also had the bad habit of hating being underestimated, so if there ever was a situation where someone could look down on him, usually he would do everything in his power to prevent that.
Easily rage baited. Gotcha.
It's an additional reason for wanting to prove these Holy Knights wrong. He wanted to show them he wasn't what they thought he was. This brings us now to the fight with the main army, but that's the second half of episode 1 I'll cover in the next video.
And we will watch that right now. Please go check out Aninews, link in the video, chat right here. Go give it a like, juice it up. I'm gonna take a bathroom break. Then, here's part 2. All right? Part 2, 1 minute, bathroom break. Be right back. I'm back. Let's get to part 2 of Aninews cut content. This is how the battle versus the 47th Demon Lord really went. Lock in.
So far, Sentenced to be a Hero has taken the solo leveling approach. The adaptation is extremely faithful, however, when it comes to portraying the main character, a few creative liberties were taken.
Okay.
For Sung Jinu, they made him far less edgy, but for Xylo, they actually
More
made
edgy.
him more.
Yeah.
In the anime, this makes him significantly more hesitant to work with Teorita, a change I personally found made the story better. It's an opinion you two might share once we see how different Xylo acts in the novel.
I mean, already I acknowledged that in part 1, especially with the part where the pact is being made, the dramatic way of him being pushed to the end and then making the pact rather than doing it before. The drama, I loved it. The direction, beautiful. The soundtrack, the monologue, god fucking damn, it's gorgeous.
So, in addition to all the lore that just can't be explained within the anime, here's the rest of everything episode 1 left out from the novels. Let's get started.
But first, before we get started,
To pick things up.
okay, all right, okay, no ad read this time. But if there were to be an ad read, it would be there. I need you to realize this, okay?
Right where we left it, Xylo had just made his pact with Teorita, and now the two were headed to support the main Holy Knight army. That's the key difference you need to remember, as in the anime, Xylo didn't make that pact until later.
Yeah.
When it comes to the novel, though, Xylo has the goddess's power from the very beginning. So, upon their arrival, the fight had already started, mortars and staffs firing lightning into the incoming horde of fairies. That means the whole setup before was anime original, showing us how that fight initially began.
Great.
Previously, we did get to see these staffs in action, but these mortar-like great staffs were very much different. They were enhanced by a sacred seal compound, loaded with physical shells then shot one at a time. This meant they couldn't be fired rapidly, as in between each shot they needed to be reloaded.
I love the realistic nature of the combat here. Rather than a bunch of magic just going boom, boom, it's just like ballista. It's just like, loading a giant, crossbow. You have to put the seal on it. You gotta lock them ready. You gotta go ready. But there's like a wave of enemies coming, and we're trying to like stand front and last, while the frogs are jumping at us, and the reload time isn't enough, so we can't spam it, right? The realism combined with the fantasy elements in warfare.
Not only that, with the seal itself only having a limited supply of what's called luminescence, only so many shells could be fired before that luminescence ran out.
Okay.
At this point, the knights were doing fine though, easily defending a front line the fairies couldn't even get close to. As for who these knights were associated with, well, that was a faction Xylo wasn't familiar with.
Go back.
Easily defending a front line the fairies couldn't even get close to. As for who these knights were associated with, well, that was a faction Xylo wasn't familiar with.
Special Knights.
As knowledgeable as he was on the 12 orders of Holy Knights and the different crests that honored their noble background.
There's 12 orders of Holy Knights, 12 goddesses up until the 13th unactivated. So this is the 13th squadron?
This was one he'd never seen before. It indicated this had to be a newly formed order, backed by a person of influence he'd never heard of before.
Could that person of influence be the person looking at Xylo when he is being punished in the post-credit scene? There's a character that's leaning by the door cockily, cocky-like, right? He's standing, he's kind of putting his head like that, right? Multiple times they showed a camera to that guy. I don't know, but that person looked kind of important.
More than likely related to the awakening of Teorita as the new 13th goddess. Now, when Teorita was scolding Dota for not wanting to fight, where Dota was exhausted from the long trek over here, Teorita wasn't fazed at all. Xylo knew that was her just acting tough though, since as powerful as goddesses were, they still got tired. The thing is, he also couldn't call her out on it, as by his own words, doing so would be stupid. So, Teorita would continue on about how weak of a squire Dota was, calling out his lack of motivation and spirit.
She does cook Dota a lot, and you know what? It's all true.
We know Dota wasn't actually Xylo's squire, but apparently it was common for goddesses to mistake others as such. And once they were deemed as one, nothing could be done to change that. All this Xylo couldn't be bothered with though, as the majority of his attention was on the battle taking place ahead of him.
Okay.
As well as the Holy Knights were faring earlier, Xylo could tell the tides were shifting. You see, with the Demon Lord possessing an intellect actually capable of strategizing, that meant it could deploy the
scariest thing about these monster designs is how they're smiling. It's like in Hell's Paradise too. The creepy ass, Buddhist religious themed monsters pulling up and they're smiling, and it's like, oh god, like Attack on Titan. Are they smiling at you? It's just like, why are you smiling? It makes me more scared.
Fairies in a way that made them competent. Xylo had a knack for strategy himself, so that's how he knew a flank was coming. It was the natural course of action given the Holy Knights had lost their own detachments. This had Xylo and Teorita prepare themselves for battle, that key difference once again changing Xylo's demeanor here. Where in the anime he refused to use Teorita's powers at all, in the novel he was simply cautious. He was already intent on using her powers for victory, but
yeah, the anime's direction, right? Their intent is to really hone in on the tragic hero who feels guilty for murdering a goddess in the past, right? Quotations murder, and therefore doesn't want to rely on it, but has to do so to save the day, right? In the source material, Not like that at all. More casual. I like their edgy direction.
But before heading out, he first needed to make sure she was okay. Since he was aware her stamina wasn't unlimited, Xylo wanted to ensure she had enough for the miracles she was about to use. That was, after all, the main reason goddesses got tired. Using their miracles drained them.
Okay.
It's not like Teorita would admit she was tired even if she was, though, as to her entire purpose was to create miracles for humanity.
And they're going to keep going until they burn themselves out. They will never stop of fatigue, and that's why it's so important to just, like, you know, control that, right? Because she's going to keep doing it for the head pats to the point that she's going to get consumed by blight.
To her, that was her entire meaning and existence. So, even if Teorita knew the battle would prove fatal for her, she would gladly throw away her life if it meant she could earn some praise from it. She insisted her knight depend on her as much as was needed, an attitude Xylo truly hated. It's for that reason he would tell her she would find no praise in death, a remark that clearly went to surprise her.
And no praise in
Right before
death.
she could explain why, though, that's when the battle would reach its turning point, forcing the hero and his goddess to enter themselves. The way they did so showcased Teorita's power in a way we've yet to see before, summoning swords from the ground rather than the sky.
From the ground?
This gave Xylo a pedestal to jump off of, allowing him to launch himself when combined with the sacred seal Sakura.
He can fly!
Another gift-granting mark named after a dragonfly in the language from the ancient kingdom.
Okay, the jump
It was
seal?
known to boost the physical abilities of those that possessed it. This one improved Xylo's jumping power, specifically by mitigating the laws of physics.
What?
It didn't fully counteract them, but it did allow him to fly, if only for a short period of time.
Which law of physics are we mitigating? Well, if you're jumping, like you're flying almost, your weight, the gravitational force down, is now lessened. The friction against you as you propel yourself forward is also changed. Huh. It's not changing his body weight, but rather like the gravitational force mostly then.
So, when combined with his other seal, Zate Finde, you start to see why it was the whole Belcore Thunderstroke seal
Oh god!
was given to him.
Super multi-purpose belly core mobility thunderstroke seal super what's that Mary Poppins song? Super califragilicious exadidocious.
He was a fighter meant to specialize in aerial combat, a type of soldier that would rain fire down from the air.
That's fucking hype. AoE explosions, bro would just be jumping around throwing bombs through daggers.
All while combating fairies who had the ability to fly. This revolutionized the way the Holy Knights could even fight the Blight, since it made mobile attacks against them possible. No longer would a whole contingent of knights be required anymore. The Federated Kingdom could now attack with just one.
Okay.
Now, if you're wondering why then did the kingdom not just start training a whole bunch of Xylos, well, the main reason was that
Dangerous.
they couldn't. With mastering such powers requiring more than a good bit of training, only a handful within the entire kingdom had proved themselves capable of doing so.
Okay, it's less about gatekeeping the potential of Xylo's power, but more of the skill issue.
To accurately strike while speeding through the air like this wasn't something just anyone could do.
That is true. Okay. If you've ever played COD or throwing knives, that shit's hard, man. Right? In an anime, you don't think about it. They just have fucking auto aimbots, right? But if you approach it in a realistic way, bro be just fucking jumping, flipping around, tossing shit. Bullseye, bullseye.
This is why Xylo rarely misses, since he's essentially an elite level knight with skills only a few possess. Skills made exponentially better when you have a goddess providing infinite ammo for you.
Bro might be from the circus, bro, where he learned all these acrobatics. The circus that fucking the other guy was trying to sell the royal castle off to.
Ever use the AC-130 kill streak in Call of Duty?
Yeah!
That's pretty much what Xylo was doing to the fairies here.
Woo!
He would drop literal bombs from above, thinning out the fairies wherever he could.
What's the sound? What's the voice line when AC-130 pops up? Do they say chopper inbound? No. That's a different one. AC-130 is a bunch of bombs being dropped. Is it AC-130 inbound? Because like there's a different kill streak one where you have a chopper and you go drr, 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 you know what I mean?
Any fairy that did manage to get close to him was immediately cut down by a sword he was holding in his other hand. So eventually Xylo would single-handedly push back that first wave of fairies. In the anime, he had done so without Teorita's powers, making his skills there even more impressive.
Okay.
Either way, The outcome remained the same, and
I like the UAV online.
Ella would then be confronted by the Knight Captain. In the past, a female soldier would have been quite the big deal, but now with the development of sacred seals evening the playing field, the physical advantage men normally held over women was being erased.
Wow, how inclusive. Wow, the sacred seals are for feminists. Let's go.
Much to the point that female soldiers were actually quite common now.
Okay.
The conversation with Kivia then went a little bit different, as where in the anime Xylo mentioned how he hadn't made the pact yet, in the novel Xylo just tells her to deal with the fact that he had. It was a very brief moment in which he identified himself as a hero and said his job was to kill the Demon Lord.
Kivia is shook
He
here.
at first pinned the blame of this outcome on Dota, but with Kivia not even knowing who that
Why Dota always got his ass sticking up?
was, all Xylo was to her was this random guy who stole the goddess and made a pact with her. And now he was demanding they fight alongside him. So, with none of this making sense, Kivia was left confused to the point of silence.
Kivia loses aura here in the manga. This is the manga, right? It's not a light novel art, right? This like dazed and confused look. You know, she was like a mean onna in the anime, being very, you know, stubborn. Here, it looks like she just kind of caught off guard and there's cute slice of life moments happening, you know? Like if you add in these moments, it kind of, the tension and the aura, it's gone.
As blunt as Xylo had put it, Kivia couldn't figure out what to say to him. This, I think, the anime does a little bit better, as Xylo's hesitation to make the pact really hammers home how affected by his past he is.
Yes, great direction.
Sure, saying I hate goddesses might be a little bit too edgy, but not wanting to go through the same traumatizing event again is certainly understandable.
Yep.
In any case, with more fairies fast approaching from across the riverbank, Xylo would attempt to order the knights around without Kivia's approval. He wanted them to lure as many of the fairies away from the Demon Lord as possible, also he could fight the Demon Lord with minimal interference. The thing is, to do so would mean having the fairies cross the riverbank, a direct contradiction to Kivia's real orders of stopping the fairies from crossing.
Fuck you, Kivia.
So, despite Xylo knowing his plan was the ideal plan, Kivia refused to accept it, as to her, their objective remained unchanged.
Okay, that extra context kind of makes more sense, I guess, and why she's being stubborn. The anime really made her look like a clown that was held back by pride and honor of being a knight and didn't listen to an order that probably she accepted in the back of her mind being more correct.
This east bank of the river belonged to them, and as proud members of the Northern Noble Alliance, they refused to let their territory be tainted by the enemy.
That's the thing, man. Pride is always there before the downfall. Even dogs have pride. But when you're dead, doesn't mean much, right? But if you're a hero, hey man, we can resurrect.
It was after hearing this that Xylo couldn't help but ask if Kivia was stupid, since this plan of hers was gonna get everyone killed. According to her though, the messenger from Galtuil said that she had the right to make the final call. And since Galtuil was the fortress serving as the current military headquarters,
that's also where Teo was being escorted to, in that coffin, right?
They alone had the authority to govern everything regarding the military.
They are the HQ. Alright, they are the biggest of the most corrupt leadership is there.
So if they said Kivia could make the final call, that meant that call was hers to make, no matter how idiotic it was.
Okay.
Well, idiotic it was, as Kivia was fully intent on risking all their lives for honor.
Intentional? Did the people at headquarters understand what kind of character Kivia was? Was it their intention for? Well, why though? Why would they sabotage like that? That? Again, I'm trying to figure out the incentives here. If there is a conspiracy of picking Kivia specifically for this,
she was giving orders that directly conflicted with the ones Xylo got. Normally that wouldn't be the case, but with the affairs of Galtuil funded and governed by various nobles, that meant there were often different motives between all of them. So it just so happened here that the Northern Noble Alliance was conflicting with whoever gave orders to the heroes, resulting in the disagreement we have now.
It's goddamn shareholders, man. It's always about money. It's about the sponsors. It's about the backers, rather than figuring out what to actually do.
What went to make Kivia's plan all the more silly is that the land she was protecting, no one even lived on. The forest behind her wasn't even under development.
Now it just feels intentional, huh?
So, even if her and her army were to retreat right now,
What
there
honor?
wouldn't be any casualties because of it. That being the case, To Xylo, Kivia was putting her unit's lives at risk for nothing. That's when Xylo would notice something off about her, almost like her uncompromising attitude was the result of guilt. The way she spoke and the way she looked all indicated that her and her soldiers were fighting to atone for something.
Atonement? She looks guilty, yeah. This look with the sweat bead here, it's just like they know it's wrong, but what's going on here? What guilt? What do they owe them?
Xylo just couldn't figure out what.
Maybe Kivia's only in the knight position because she was backed by these noble groups or whatever, and you know, that's why she's doing this.
Kivia would then press Xylo about his pact again, wanting to know how it was he ended up with her. Reason being that, according to her, everything they were doing was for the goddess. You see, even if every last one of them were killed, so long as Teorita was delivered safely, that was mission success. It was after a bit more scolding from Kivia.
Why are they bringing the unawakened 13th goddess to headquarters? What do they want to do with her there? Why was it even in a different place? I don't know.
That finally Teorita would jump in to defend Xylo. Kivia would try to call
She called her a fool? Damn!
their pact a mistake, but as Teorita would testify, goddesses don't make mistakes. If she chose Xylo as her knight, then that meant it was her destiny to do so.
This feels like cap, but I'll go with you.
It also seems Kivia was aware of who Teorita was supposed to be bound to originally, but before she could say who, she would be interrupted. Teorita would hear no more of her supposed.
I feel like... Okay. Wait, I got it! Okay, I don't got it, but yeah, okay, let me cook. Okay, so right now, they are transporting an unawakened, right? The key difference here is unawakened goddess, right? Still factory reset. Transporting to HQ. That doesn't really matter though, because there's a demon lord around that way path. We now know that the Kivia's knights, right? Their entire purpose is to just be fucking stupid and die and fail the mission because of the backends of whatever. We know that. But what we know what happens when an awakened goddess like becomes corrupted and gets over by blight. But what about an unawakened goddess? So does the idea right now by schizo theory is the plan was supposed to be a failure. The unawakened goddess was supposed to make contact with the demon lord, but why? I want to focus in on the mechanics of awakened versus unawakened goddess and how that may be a different outcome. I don't know. I'm not cooking.
Nonsense. Shortly after, Kivia would find out the person in front of her was Xylo, but right as she was about to out him as the goddess killer, the giant cockroach that was the 47th demon lord would reveal itself.
Ah, the Goggy.
This wasn't a demon lord in the traditional sense, but rather the name given to creatures who served as a center of contagion. You see, any creature that acted as a catalyst for the demon blight outbreak would subsequently be referred to as a demon lord.
Okay.
Most demon lords had their own unique abilities, but what they all had in common was the way they contaminated their surroundings. Entire ecosystems would be distorted just by their presence. Humans weren't immune to this contamination either, as unless you were protected by a sacred seal, the demon blight would affect you too. Now, odd Goggies.
Go back.
Human beings. Entire ecosystems would be distorted just by their presence. Humans weren't immune to this contamination either, as unless you were protected by a sacred seal, the demon blight would affect you too.
Okay. Sacred seals to resistance against blight. Humans can be turned to blight, then they turn into monsters too, yeah?
Now, Odd Goggi's ability we saw in the anime, allowing it to deflect sacred seal attacks. Xylo had no idea how it worked, but the way it countered with such aggressiveness and accuracy made it worth watching out for. It meant to defeat this demon lord, Xylo would have to hit it with something big. Perhaps maybe a battering ram or a catapult. Nothing like that was present here though, so that's when Kivia would suggest the Scorched Terrain seals. The thing is, with Odd Goggi having the ability to deflect these types of attacks, one could only imagine what would happen if he deflected a Scorched Terrain seal.
Oof.
That's why Xylo insisted they wait, requesting she at least let him take care of its reflective shell first.
Nah, run it down
Kivia,
mid.
as we saw, insisted on maintaining her.
Yeah, I do think you didn't consider that. I think you're panicking and you are fucking up.
Her honor, leading Xylo to say how he just wants everyone to survive. Only after accepting whatever punishment Kivia was sure to have for him would she finally let Xylo do what he wanted. Xylo would then ask Teorita for her power again, saying that if she helped, he would give her all the praise she desired.
All the head pats.
So, for the most part, this was just a combination of events from different parts of the anime, culminating with Kivia reconsidering things and Teorita now eager for battle. Teorita did find Xylo's concern for her misplaced, but with Xylo knowing there was a limit to how much she could summon, he knew he had to be wary of her condition. As I said before, even if a goddess was getting tired, they refused to show it because they hated showing weakness.
They want head pats.
Just like Xylo says in the anime though, there were ways of telling when a goddess was tired. Whether it was the light in their eyes or the sparks flying from their hair, the brighter they glowed, the more that goddess was pushing themselves.
Oh, I thought that if it dims, then it's like bad news. Okay.
Teorita's hair hadn't stopped sparkling the moment their pact was made, so Xylo was wondering if she was nearing her limit already. It's the very reason he would demand he handle all the smaller fairies. He didn't want Teorita summoning anything she didn't have to. The result was an elite aerial knight in action, implementing the key rules of mobile combat as he remembered them. The first was to always secure a place to land, while the other was to never stop moving.
Okay.
If he could maneuver himself constantly into the enemy's blind spot, then that made attacking and landing so much easier. It was the moment he stopped moving that opened the door to being surrounded, and as soon as that happened, the fight would be over. Xylo would do all this once again without Teorita's assistance, making his way to the Demon Lord as fast as he could. He would weave in and out between its legs, expertly hitting any gap.
Hey, this is the Evakoi cut. I love this part. The part where we are scaling up the Demon Lord and the structure of the Demon Lord right here. It's so cool. The way it's moving.
Weave in and out between its legs, expertly hitting any gaps that look like weaknesses. For any normal soldier, this wouldn't have been possible, but for Xylo, it's the very reason he'd become a captain of the Holy Knights. So, in the end, he was able to destroy a leg just like how we saw in the anime. This opened the battle up to Teorita, the one factor Xylo knew the Demon Lord wouldn't be expecting. Since he refrained from using her powers the entire time he was fighting, Xylo knew he could catch it off guard at least once. With his previous attack doing damage to its leg, it was only natural the Demon Lord would be on guard for that again. What it wouldn't be expecting is this. A massive explosive sword launched at him like a bolt from a crossbow.
Looks like a spear.
This was the attack Xylo was working towards. Everything he had done was leading to this.
Set up. Okay, smart.
Xylo was fully expecting it to kill Odgogi, but when it didn't and even countered with an attack of its own, Xylo started to think perhaps they couldn't win. Despair followed pain and defeat followed despair. It was in this moment that the Demon Lord would be writhing in pain.
Yo, that was poetic. Despair followed pain, and pain followed despair. So this is the source material fight, right? So in our version, the big sword did its thing, but here it didn't.
So started to think perhaps they couldn't win. Despair followed pain, and defeat followed despair.
Bro's a poet.
It was in this moment that the Demon Lord would be writhing in pain too, though, ceasing its orders to its army of fairies. The result was pure chaos, as without orders the fairies went wild. Some even started to attack and kill each other. This at least gave Xylo time to recover, leading to that final attack with Dota.
Oh, never mind. This did happen. No, I'm just getting my facts messed up. I forgot about this part.
This at least gave Xylo time to recover, leading to that final attack with Dota. We already know how that ended, but to explain how it worked, these scorched terrain seals were nothing more than pieces of wood with sacred seals carved into them.
Dota just be pulling up just so conveniently with everything, huh? Nah, Dota, bro, he is Aizen. Nah, he's not a clueless kleptomaniac. It's all intentional. Dota bailed Xylo out at the end. They're like, oh, you need some help? All right, buddy.
It was the barrel itself that was the weapon, constructed from a special wood that could carry the seal.
All right.
There were a few safety mechanisms preventing the wood from detonating outright, but to carry it around the way Dota did was just foolish. Reason being that once those safety mechanisms were removed, the seals would activate, and the number of pieces pulled out determined the power and blast radius
The
of
shrapnels.
it. Xylo decided to set it to the minimum power possible, since to do anything more would destroy the entire forest. Remember, These were the same weapons they used to blast a mountain off the face of the planet. So it's not like humanity didn't have a means to defeat the Demon Lord, it just came at quite the cost.
Okay.
The end was exactly as we saw. The Demon Lord imploded and the fairy army scattered. The only small difference coming after was when it came time to praise Teorita, Xylo had no problem patting her head.
Good job.
He would compliment her survival, all while giving her exactly what she wanted.
Aww.
He didn't even hesitate to give her additional praise since Xylo in the novel saw nothing wrong with it.
But in the anime,
wasn't traumatized to the same extent Xylo in the anime was. This is a change I find quite welcome, as despite it making Xylo more edgy, at the same time it helps to flesh out his character.
Absolutely, it deepens the bond of how significant this tragic past was and how he is not able to move on from it just yet. But maybe with this new goddess, he can, you know, walk on the path of atonement and forgive himself.
You get more of a sense in the anime that whatever Xylo went through with his last goddess, it was awful.
Yep.
Much to the point that he would like to just not associate with them anymore. Enter Kivia to express her discontent, and all Xylo could think of was whether she was gonna kill him or not. She wouldn't be in the wrong to do so, as killing a hero was no different than breaking a piece of equipment. And if she was the person Teorita was originally meant to form a pact with, that was all the more reason to get rid of him.
Did Kivia want Teo? It just feels like Kivia was sent to fail. I feel like Kivia was carefully handpicked by these backers who have an alternate agenda to make sure that an unawakened 13th goddess, while on the route to headquarters, gets intercepted by the Demon Lord shit, and I don't know. I just one of the theories.
Unless both parties agreed to rescind the pact, the only other way to get rid of it was for the goddess to die.
Oof.
So Kivia was truly at a roadblock here. The way she spoke also seemed rather odd, as her intended plans and her actions
You were originally supposed to be mine? What? She knows. She knows those. She knows the secret plan.
contradicted each other. She had mentioned bringing Teorita under their protection, but nothing about actually using her to help them win. So, if protecting Teorita truly was their goal, then why did they decide to fight to the death here?
I don't think it was the
whole thing
goal.
just didn't make any sense to Xylo.
None of it makes sense.
It's not like Xylo could do anything about it though, as Kivia was in full control here. In the end, she would reveal Xylo's truth, bringing us now to his sentencing.
Ooh.
That, however, I'll include with episode 2, a video I'll be getting out on Saturday.
Alright!
For now, I hope you enjoyed this one, and if you did, then
Give a like. That part at the end I think is so interesting. That's definitely where all the conspiracies and the mysteries lie, and I hope that Aninews is able to deliver even more cut content to kind of flesh out that moment, especially with the guy who was just casually standing right by the door, right, looking at Xylo being sentenced. What was going on there? What's going on? Anyways, thank you, Mr. Aninews, for the coverage of episode 1 cut content. Again, here's the link to his video. Go check out the AFK Arena stuff too that I linked before. Go give him a like, juice him up, subscribe to his channel. See you next time.